I'd like to call the Criminal Justice Committee to order. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our prior meeting. Bill, second to that. Fred, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. We're gonna go to the agenda. Kate, is that you? Is that your
Yes.
70,000 grant?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. The first item is a request to extend an existing grant. As you know, we receive $70,000 a year for a CARP grant. That's Crimes Against Revenues Prosecution. And what I need is permission to apply to extend it. We've been told that we are going to get the grant and the money is already in our budget, so this is just the formality for asking permission to apply for the extension of the grant.
Okay. Any discussion?
Motion.
Motion by Matt, second by Bill. Any further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And I'm really easy today. The second is,
Not going there.
a request to ratify our application for a drug enforcement grant. There was a short turnaround window, so I didn't have an opportunity to come to the committee to ask permission. This is a $10,000 grant, and the purpose of the grant is for us to be able to purchase Celebrite, which is equipment that allows us to forensically analyze cell phones. And in the drug business, cell phones give us tremendous evidence. It shows us the intent to sell, it shows us the amount, it shows us the logistics of who was meeting whom. Right now we have to go down to Latham, and it is a tremendous time drain for our investigators. So when we saw the opportunity to apply for this grant, we took it, and I hope that you would ratify our application.
Kate, is that a matching grant or?
No.
No match?
No.
Is that enough for the Celebrate?
Correct.
Okay. Anybody wanna make a motion? Ron? Bill? Any further discussion, questions? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you, Chairman, and with your permission, I'm going to leave. We're picking a jury this morning in a manslaughter case.
Is that what the full parking lot is?
Yeah, that's what the full parking lot
Yeah,
is.
I figured someone.
What's 3?
We need to do a request to amend the budget for the
Oh,
Okay.
I was trying to get confirmation that we formally received it, but I am now asking prospectively permission to amend the budget when we receive the $10,000 grant, and that will save me having to come back and do the perfunctory amendment of the budget.
Okay. Somebody wanna make that motion? Fred? Matt? Any further discussion? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Now you're done. Thank you, Kate. Good luck.
Thanks.
Bob, I guess you're up next.
Thank you.
Bob, Miami Vice.
Good morning.
Morning.
I have 4 resolution requests which are somewhat easy, and I'll go through them. And then I have an item for discussion. The first resolution request is to extend a memorandum of understanding with the Warren County Department of Social Services for preventative money. They give us $60,000 a year to do preventative work with our PINS officer. It supports one officer that we have in Glens Falls City School District.
Okay, Fred, Bill? Any questions, discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The next resolution is to extend the contract with Warren Hamilton Counties Action Committee or the Community Action Center to do all our alternative sentencing program. This is the community service program that we run through the county with the local courts. The total cost of that program is $51,000.
Okay. Somebody wanna make that motion? Matt? Jim? Any discussion? Yes, Rachel?
Bob, as it relates to the 51,000 or the 60,000, both of those, they're just, I guess I'm confused. Are they grant monies coming in where there's no match, or is this funding already in your,
Okay, the social services money for $60,000, what we do is we use preventative dollars, that social services access through, the Office of the OCFS. What happens is their preventative match is, I think it's 62% reimbursement. A probation officer is about 12%. So obviously, there's more reimbursement for the county for that one. So that money comes out of the social services budget, and they get reimbursed $62,000 from the state on that. With respect to the $51,000, $5,236 is state money. The rest is county money to do the program.
and that money is already in your budget?
That money's already in
Okay.
the budget. These are items that are already in the budget. You're welcome.
Anything else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Next resolution is to extend the contract with KMG Monitoring Services for electronic monitoring of adult offenders. Last year we started the program. What we have is a release under supervision program with our department. Where mainly the county judge releases individuals to our program, either he reduces bail or he just releases them under supervision. If not for the supervision of our department, he probably wouldn't release these people or decrease their bail. What we did last year, thinking we could save the county a little bit of money, we also added a component to contract with KMG to do electronic monitoring on individuals to enhance or to give the judge more support with respect to releasing people. We put $10,000 in the budget last year, and we spent $5,333.67. So if we don't use the program, we don't spend the money. This year I put a little bit less in, $7,500, and we've used it quite a bit also to do some sanctions on our drug court program, where when they're in the county court drug program, sanctions typically amount to a weekend in jail or some amount of time in jail. So in certain cases, we've used electronic monitoring as a sanction not to put them in jail, and on other times we've a lot of times in drug court, people will get sanctioned for using alcohol and or drugs, and they spend a little time in jail while a treatment bed is being looked at. Sometimes it can take 30, 60 days to find a bed because they're that much in demand. On a couple occasions, we've released people on electronic monitoring under the supervision of our department while they were waiting for a bed, therefore freeing up jail space and saving whatever the daily rate is. I think it's at least $80 a day, probably more. So that was the first crack we had at it last year. I think we did pretty good. We were conservative how we used it. And this year we put $7,500 in instead of $10,000. I think it's a program that potentially could save a great deal of money. We had the first individual we had on our program was a lady charged with some felony charges, and at the time she was arrested, she was breastfeeding. So we were able to get her out of jail and not endure the cost of having that potential liability, or not liability, or cost to the jail. So I think it enhances what we do, and I think it could potentially save a lot of money for the county. So with that said, small investment of $7,500.
Somebody wanna make that motion? Rachel?
I'll make it, but I have a question.
Seconded, Ron? Go ahead.
Thank you. Correct me if I'm wrong, I thought that, like, say if someone who is arrested, whether on probation or whatever it might be, and say it's a DWI, they have to pay for, like, the interlock system. Is there any responsibility on the defendant to have to pay that $27.78 rate for electronic monitoring?
We did not. Most of the individuals that we've had, have no money, so it was something that we didn't look into when we did it. I think in the future we could, though Mr. Wappett will probably have something to say about it, so the majority of his clients. But they really are the ones we've had are in drug court. They're not working. Their insurance is Medicaid, so there's really no means for them to do it.
If there's an ability to pay, are you seeing it done in other counties or no?
Not really. I think most are, paid for by the county. So we don't really see much in other counties of where they're looking for the defendants to pay for that.
Robin, I'm sure knows, I'd love to see them pay some of their tabs towards your office as well, but.
Me pay it?
No. Thanks.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
And the last resolution request is to delete probation officer number 8 from the probation department's salary schedule and to amend our table of organization. Last year, in April 2004, we made a probation assistant full-time and therefore negated the need to have a probation officer. What we did was we saw a better way to do business and use a probation assistant to do supervision of low-risk cases under the guidance of a senior probation officer and some other tasks. So we basically streamlined and redefined what we were doing a little bit. And so now what we need to do, the probation officer number 8 still pops up in the salary schedule, so we need to take that out and amend our table of organization.
Very good. Somebody wanna make that motion? Fred? Matt? Any further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
And the last thing I have is I want to bring it to the committee's attention. I've talked about this a couple times for the last couple of years. Raise the age of criminality from 16 to 18. The governor recently came out, he had he appointed a commission last year to look at raising the age of criminality from 16 to 18. Meaning, currently in New York State, if you're 16 above, you're treated as an adult. New York is one of 2 states that currently do that, North Carolina being the other. And the governor has put forth legislation in his budget bill where he's going to look to increase the age from 16 to 18. What that means for my department and the local criminal system is we're going to now take the 16 and 17-year-old population, misdemeanors and nonviolent felony offenders from the adult world, bring them into the juvenile world. 2013 statistics indicate that was 100 individuals. So obviously that's going to impose more work for us in terms of cases that we never really saw before. We're at least in some fashion going to have to do something with them, some type of diversion assessment. The bill was just put in. I think as time goes on this year, we'll find out how it actually plays out. It's got to be agreed upon by 2 houses. There's a lot of fiscal implications to the county. I mean, if we're going to have 100 more cases, obviously, that calls for additional staffing. They call for counties to have family engagement specialists, a curriculum of services, a lot of things that currently are in place, because if you have 16 and 17-year-olds, you have to do something with them. You just can't have them under supervision. You just can't assess them. You need programs for them. This has been a situation or a bill that was originally put forth by the Office of Court Administration, and through the last couple of years, we've talked with them and talked to the state about if it comes to be that this will be an additional cost to local probation departments, local county attorney's office who prosecute juvenile delinquents, Department of Social Services. So it's potential for a lot of funding. The state, through NISAC, of course, has indicated that they will pay for all costs, but I think we all know that the state is not a very good partner in a lot of things that they do. So as time goes on, NISAC, this has been on their radar. They're certainly not going to support it without funding to localities. So it's something to watch as it plays out. I wanted to bring that to your attention today because it is a part of what the governor talked about in his State of the States in his budget bill. And I think it's something that we leave on the agenda, and it's something I can update the committee as we go forth in this year, because it's coming, and we can argue whether we think it's a good idea or not, but it's something that's going to come. And the interesting, at least they did a couple of things wisely. The bill won't go into effect until what year are we in? Until 2017, where 16 and 17s will be 17s will be phased in, or 16 to 17, and then the following year in 2018, 17 and 18. So there's a year to plan after this year, and there's a phase-in period. So we have some time to digest and see where they're coming from, and of course time to advocate for funding which we've already started to do. So, I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and as it goes through this year, I will keep everybody updated of how it plays out.
Bob, we appreciate that thought. We will keep you on the agenda. We did have a little update from NISAC at Intercounty. Did you have something, Cal?
Yeah, do we have facilities, like, this will change what you do with them? I mean, is there anything in Warren County anymore?
What it will do is a couple things. I mean, obviously, the bill reads that the 16 to 17-year-olds, now they're prosecuted by the district attorney's office. What would happen is the complaints would come into our department, we would do an assessment. If you're able to deal with them, or divert them out of the system, you do it. If you supervise them, you're able to do those things. And this doesn't include violent felonies. They would still, and juvenile offenders would still be handled by the district attorney's office. In terms of programs, the programs are limited. Mental health is a big thing. There's a lack of mental health services. Recently, we've seen a rash of juvenile sex offenders. There are no juvenile sex offender programs, so that's something we would also look to do. I think most counties, and I think through the years, we've done a pretty good job of limiting our use of detention and placements, as we know the detention home is no longer there. So, you know, you're talking about this population now where they're saying they don't, 16 to 17-year-olds, for the misdemeanors and nonviolent population would not go to a local jail or state prison. So now you have the issue of bringing back detention. They closed down, they phased down the OCFS secure facilities. They were under investigation by the federal government for a multitude of sins that have been committed in there. So now do you expand that whole thing? So there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be in place. So the short answer is no, we don't currently have those things, but they're going to be to need in place, and they're going to cost money. So we'll see what the state does in terms of that.
Robert, you said that's 100 cases that the DA is presently doing?
Yeah, the 2013 statistics for misdemeanors and felonies indicate there were 100 arrests for that population. So they were prosecuted by the district attorney's office, brought into a local court, you know, got a conditional discharge in ACOD, maybe reduced to a violation, some were put on probation. So those cases now would be handled in the family court arena.
So it's moving from the DA through your office to family court?
Shifting from the district, yeah.
Do you have any idea how many cases Kate has a year?
No idea. Wow.
Okay. Yeah, a lot more than 100. I think you were first, Fred.
It just seems to me we should take a position on this with the legislature, you know, even if it's just that we support it, if provided that they provide the funding for it. So either through this committee or legislative. I mean, what do you think our position should be? Just that it's going to happen anyway?
It's going to happen. I think that, yeah, I think we'd be supportive with the funding. You know, we need it fully funded. You know, they've indicated in the bill, and what NISAC has said they would reimburse 100% of these costs, but, you know, I'm a little bit skeptical that those things will happen in the long run. I mean, this is something that's going to go on in the future, so they can't just fund it for a year or two. I mean, the county entities are going to have those costs year in, year out. We're going to support programs for these kids, so they're going to be there. So it's something, you know, that's going to be a part of what we do for the future, so it needs to be long-term.
Do you have any estimate of what the cost would be?
To our department, when we did some preliminary figures a couple of years ago, we believe we would need another probation assistant, another probation officer. Salary alone, that's about $74,000, not counting benefits, or the infrastructure, the office space or computers to do it. So for our department alone, we're talking $75,000. I mean, programs has got to be at least that much more. Got to be more than that, hundred thousands of dollars. So, you know, just talking about those two things, you know, you're 200,000, 250, without talking about detention costs, which again the state said they would support those, but so.
I just think we should get our position down to the legislature, because I think we have a better chance of success if get it part of the legislation than if we go back later and ask for money after the program's already in place. I
agree, and I think NISAC is coming down that way also.
So you want to draft something for the next meeting, or have somebody draft something for the next meeting, Fred?
Bob's got the, needs to get all the information, if you could help,
Sure.
draft the resolution.
I'd be happy
Either
to.
legislative or this committee.
Definitely.
Good move, Fred. So you're gonna do that for next
Do that.
meeting, Robert? Thank you.
Hear that.
I think Ron was next.
Yep. Thank you, sir. I know this is early in the process and you can't really give us these figures, but it's not entirely new costs. You're gonna be shifting the previous, these 100 cases are already a burden on the system and have a cost associated with it. So that cost is gonna shift into the new treatment or detention programs or whatever. You don't have a handle on, say we spend $100,000 a year on this, will our cost increase, by 50%, or have you done that kind of figuring yet to see what it will add as opposed to what's currently being expended?
I haven't. It will be a shift from the adult system to the criminal system. With the cost of prosecuting and dealing with those cases on the adult level, I don't know. I know by coming into our department, the additional staff would be needed, and I believe that for some of the cases that go through the adult system, if they get a conditional discharge, for instance, there's no one supervising them, so no one's following through that they do the treatment programs. If we have them under probation and we do diversion, and we have them for 4 to 6 months, we would expect that they would do some things, so we would refer them to programs which hopefully we can develop with additional funding. So I think yes, there is a shift, but there is additional cost because of this population now is going to be supervised, and there's going to be expectations coming from them. So there is a shift, but there's going to be additional costs. What those total figures are, I don't have at the moment.
Jim?
Yeah, one of the things I've seen in schools is 16-year-olds drop out of school. Is there any way of getting the state to do something about that? 'Cause that would,
Yeah.
they're...
I think there was talk about raising the compulsory age of education, because you're right, if a kid can drop out of school, then they don't have an educational component involved with it.
We're not solving the problem.
We're not solving the problem. And, the expectation, certainly there's GED, though it's not called GED anymore, it's, I can't think of the name, there's those type of things there. So it would make sense to raise that age in compliance with this, because, obviously education is an important component of a child's development, and to have those things which we mandate that they at least go to a certain age beyond what it is now makes sense. So I think there's talk about that.
Rachel?
Is there any talk in terms of a specialized court to address sort of 16 to 18-year-olds? We see it work with Veterans Court or...
What they've talked about for the other component would be, it's kind of the misdemeanors and nonviolent felons would be handled in family court setting, and the violent felons and the juvenile offenders that would be handled by the district attorney's office as adults would go into, they were talking about developing a special term in a county court where there'd be a youth division, which, for lack of a better word, would be dealt differently than adults would be. More of a test or a push or a flavor towards the youth, kind of like a family court judge would do, but it would be a county judge doing it. And the legislation also provides that probation would be able to do diversion on some of those cases if appropriate. So there is a setup with the county court level to handle those type of cases, the violent felonies, the juvenile offenders. So it's a big shift, it's a big change, and it'll be interesting to see what they agree upon and what they come out for a bill, for a law down the road.
Anybody else have anything for Robert while he's here? Then we will see you next month with a resolution at least.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it. John, I guess you're the only one left.
Yes, sir.
Temporarily.
From what Mr. Yusey said a few minutes ago there, apparently efficient advocacy is saying something clearly enough and annoyingly enough that they start saying it for you automatically. So when he expected that I might object to adding work to our office, or to, in this case, charging fees to clients and such, He's quite correct on that. My argument has always been that if they can qualify for a public defender in the first place, then they should not be expected to come up with extraordinary fees, if that's at all possible. But that's another fight for another day. The agenda that I submitted is quite brief. First of all, just a notification that I will be leaving public service at the end of June. I've spent some 30 years in public service and another 3 years in Uncle Sam's Army. I think that's about enough of that. As I've indicated in the agenda that I've handed out, we've taken some steps already with the county administrator to ensure that there'll be a smooth transition down the road. We've worked, Mrs. Flores and I have worked with Mr. Dusick and other members of his staff, and we're certainly hopeful that we'll be able to make this happen seamlessly. Item 3 is a retirement issue that brought me here because as I started to do my planning, I went down to Human Resources and asked them about what I had to do beforehand, and they told me about turning in sick leave, and that the maximum amount of sick leave that can be turned in is 140 days, for which you can be paid 70. And I said, well, that's very nice, except for the fact that in my period of time from 2005 to present, when I've been public defender, I have not accumulated enough sick leave time. Would it be possible to do that turn in of retirement to include the retirement that I had accumulated previously in county service? And nobody really had an answer to that. Apparently it's not really been done before in the fashion that I suggested. They thought that perhaps somebody who resigned or was fired would not be eligible to resurrect, if you will, their sick leave, but I did neither of those things. I was simply not reappointed at the end of 2001. So it's not a matter of choice, and I don't think it was a matter of cause. So I then went to county attorney, Mr. Offerdew, and he did what research he could and found that there really is nothing applicable in any of the resolutions concerning this. And so then he pointed me to Mr. Dusick, who has now pointed me to you gentlemen and ladies. So I am asking that I be allowed to turn in a portion of the old sick leave that I had for my time in the district attorney's office. It'll be nowhere near the full amount. I believe I would, let's see now. I had 791 hours in this present term of employment and 686 of the old hours. One needs a total of 980. So I would need to, from the old sick leave, turn in roughly 189 hours. And I would ask the committee to consider that possibility. I would then, I believe, have to go to the full board on this to get a resolution to that effect. And that's what I'd like to do. Are there any questions about that one? Okay, and the last matter we had, Joanne McKinstry asked me to put item 4 on. There is a resolution request to grant the chairman the authority to authorize a grant, and that is grant number 5 from our oils distributions, and that has to do with some salary adjustments in our office, part-time assistant for the assigned counsel office, and various items of equipment and supplies for the Legal Aid Society, the grand total of which is $43,406 per year, and they're just seeking to have authorization for the chairman to sign on the contract on that one.
This is a grant that you have?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So he's looking for authorization for Kevin to sign it. Somebody want to make that motion? Ron? Matt? Any further discussion or questions?
This is the same grant that used to be a fixed amount, and then they changed it to where you have to show some improvement or...
This is one of the pieces of it.
Oh.
As you may recall, in 2010, it was a $212,000 grant, and then they chopped it up into 4 pieces and gave us a quarter of it every year to allow the new Office of Indigent Legal Services to slowly gain control. Well, now they have full control, and Now we have to go back to, this is the last of those ones, I think. And then, actually, I think we're coming back to you in a few months, on the next one thereafter. But it's just an ongoing process with the same amounts of money anyway.
Anything else? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? John, that obviously passed. I have a question. I've asked Paul if he'd comment briefly on your sick leave,
Certainly.
situation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John and I did have a conversation, and I indicated to John that if he wanted to pursue it, at least he needed to get it out on the table. I have not yet had an opportunity to discuss this with the county attorney, and I also think we need to discuss this with our HR director as well. And I think that all three of us should come back and report to the committee next month. And so I would recommend that approach for the committee rather than try to decide this today, because I just don't have enough information myself, and I couldn't really give you folks much help at this point.
So we will come back to that, John?
Very good.
Okay, Rachel, I think you were next.
I just want to clarify the situation so that I understand it a little bit better. And I think Paul's absolutely right. Some more information on this would be incredibly helpful in trying to make a decision. But just so that I'm clear, if, for instance, you leave the county because you take another job or whatever the case might be, when you come back to county service, you're eligible to have your sick time reinstated.
I don't believe so.
No.
There is no guidance on this.
So there's no, and so it's not an issue that you didn't leave of your own accord. I mean, you took a position as an assistant district attorney,
Correct.
which was solely based on whether the DA reappointed you in that position or not.
That's correct.
So it was contingent on that. So, what you're saying is there's no difference between if you leave to take another position and come back, or if you don't leave of your own accord and you come back later, both are the same. You don't know whether or not you are eligible to have your sick time reinstated.
The only guidance that Mr. Offerdu could find was in the civil service contracts. And of course, we're not subject to that. They have a provision in there that allows for reinstatement of sick leave, but it's a limited time period.
Right.
But it is for any reason. They specifically say whether you resign or leave for any other reason. Well, for the rare situation that I have with an appointment rather than civil service or something like that, and there aren't too many of these around, so the repetition is quite unlikely. We have no guidance whatever. But just to simply clarify things, it's not a question of resignation or being fired for cause or something like that. And so I'm simply suggesting that that hiatus that I ended up with between 2002 and 2005 just be considered that and nothing more, and that I'd be allowed to dip into some of that earlier sick leave to maximize the sick leave reimbursement.
So I guess what I'd want to know, Paul, when you come back to the table with more information is when you look at the union contract, what that time frame is?
The time frame is two months, they say.
If you come back within 2 months?
That was what I looked at Mr. Offerdu and I said, that doesn't make any sense at all. How many people would leave county service and come back in 2 months?
Personal experience, I think that was a little different, but I also would want to know that 27 days, what that equates to dollar-wise.
Bill?
Yeah, I'm worried about the precedent setting of this issue, because even though it's not civil service, it reflects on civil service, because the union can always come back and say, well, you did it for him, you can do it for us. So, I'm concerned.
Point taken. Jim?
Yeah, I'm along with Bill. I'm in the same frame of mind, but it seems like personnel would be the one to handle this, wouldn't it? I mean, they know more of the policies and...
You mean the committee?
The committee, yeah, because I mean, this could affect other elements of our policies, and, you know, it's a big picture thing in a sense. If you're gonna set a precedent, I would think personnel should handle this first, because we're really not, as a committee, we're really not set up to think about it in those terms.
That's a good point.
Paul said that was a good point. Finally, Jim. Anybody have anything else? John, are you all set?
I'm all set, thank you very much.
Thank you
and,
very much.
thank you
Congratulations
to this committee
on-
for all the, years of support.
You're welcome.
Ask for a motion, refer this over to personnel.
Sure. Jim, you wanna make a motion to refer this to Personnel Committee? You don't have to.
I think I did already. Yeah, I'd like to
Okay.
make a motion to refer this to, personnel.
Second? Fred? Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I entertain a motion to adjourn unless somebody has something else. Motion to adjourn, Matt? Rachel?
I guess something else.
All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you very much. So you got those, you got a couple forms, you really know when the agenda is?
I thought